Good afternoon. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist in New York City, Midtown Manhattan, and I'm bringing all things health related for women. Let's see, today's Thursday, August 8th, and today, as the title presented, I will be speaking on tubal pregnancy. So, a tubal pregnancy is a pregnancy that it has not occurred and is not naturally growing normally in the uterus. It's a pregnancy that's occurring in one of the fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes are kind of the arms that stretch out from the top of the uterus to grab the eggs from the ovary. If someone gets pregnant, all pregnancies occur in the fallopian tube. So the fallopian tubes have little hands at the end of them, and what they do is they grab, sorry, I'm trying to fix the lighting here, it's a little bit weird. They grab the eggs when someone ovulates. Okay, I don't know if that's much better, but we'll see. They grab the eggs from the ovary when someone ovulates, and they suck the egg into the fallopian tube. If a pregnancy occurs, that egg fertilizes at the end of that fallopian tube where the hands are. Where the hands are, and the egg then floats down into the uterus. So all pregnancies occur in the fallopian tube, and then they slowly but surely roll down into the uterus. And after around 4 to 5 days after fertilization, they latch onto the uterine wall. Now, if someone has any kind of blockage in the tube, scar tissue, adhesive bands, or the little hairs inside the tube. There are little hairs called cilia that whisk the egg. So they suck it up and they whisk that egg down into the uterus. If there's any kind of inflammation or scarring that occurred in the past, those fallopian tubes may not have normally working little hairs or cilia. So once the fertilized egg gets into the fallopian tube, instead of being swooshed down towards the uterus, it just sits there. Or if the hairs are working, but there's a blockage, any obstruction to that pathway, then the hairs can swoosh, but the egg, that fertilized egg, is too large to move down the fallopian tube, and the fallopian tube gets smaller and smaller as it reaches the uterus. Then it's going to also arrest in development, and it won't move. The fertilized egg does not know where it's located, so it just knows around 4 to 5 days after fertilization, it has to latch onto the wall. So if the fallopian tube has any kind of damage to it, that egg is arrested in the tube. It will latch onto the lining or the wall of the fallopian tube and start to grow as it normally should. Now, obviously, the fallopian tube is not an adequate vessel to carry a pregnancy. So it's a very thin-walled, delicate, not very pliable or stretchy vessel. So once that fertilized egg starts to grow, it's going to cause a problem. Now, as I mentioned, the fallopian tube gets larger as you go out towards the end, smaller as you get towards the uterus. So it's kind of like a funnel. And depending on where it stopped in its pathway will depend on how quickly that woman may or may not have issues. If it's really, really close to the uterus, that area is not very stretchy. So anywhere between 5 and 7 weeks of pregnancy, she will most likely start to have issues. So as the pregnancy starts to stretch out that portion of the tube, she'll start to have pain, cramping, and often sharp stabbing pain because the vessel is basically starting to rip. Further out away from the uterus towards the fimbriated end or the little hand of the fallopian tube, there's a lot more room. So, but of course the tube is still not the correct vessel for a pregnancy to grow. So maybe not 5 to 7 weeks, but perhaps more towards 6 to 8 weeks even, she'll start to have signs and symptoms that there's a problem. So sharp stabbing, pain, and then even potentially bleeding because that abnormally placed pregnancy cannot grow appropriately. So the body will sense that the hormone that's supposed to be produced by the developing pregnancy is inadequately growing, and it's not maintaining the lining inside the uterus to support where the pregnancy should have been. So there will be abnormal bleeding that occurs. If someone has either abnormal bleeding and or pain, stabbing pain especially, or bad cramping where she's doubled over and needs to take pain medicine, that's not normal. It's not normal to bleed. It's not normal to have that kind of pain. It is common to have a little bit of pressure, discomfort, or lower back pain, like the cycle should be coming in a day or two, but there's just no cycle. But it's not normal to have uh, strong, crampy, or even stabbing pain. That's not normal. And it's never normal to have bleeding during pregnancy. So any of those symptoms should always be addressed by a physician, ideally a gynecologist. If that's not an option, then emergency room. What we will always do is we'll evaluate you with an exam, and we'll send urine for cultures to make sure the pain and the bleeding is not from an infection, and then we'll draw out the pregnancy hormone number, or the HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. If that hormone number is high enough where we should see a pregnancy in the uterus, which means definitely greater than 1,000, but ideally 1,200 MIUs or more, we'll do the sono. And if we don't see a pregnancy in the uterus with that ultrasound, then that's indicative of an ectopic or tubal pregnancy. I'm going to stop right there for today, and then I'm going to continue tomorrow with the rest of the presentation on tubal pregnancy. So thank you very much for joining me. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner, all things health related for women. Please check out, in addition to this Facebook page, check out the YouTube page. Please press the like button and press the subscribe button or the follow button so you can get the daily information. And we also have podcasts, obviously called GYN Corner. Please check out the podcast on Anchor and on Spotify. And as of August 9th, we'll be on Apple iTunes. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll be back Friday, TGIF.